Daddy, they will kill me if you don't. Let me go! Let me go!
The story opens with two men, Vic and Danny, stealing a van from a parking lot. To hide their tracks, they quickly change the license plate. They visit a hardware store to buy several tools and supplies before heading to an empty apartment. Once inside, they start transforming one of the rooms. They cover the walls with soundproof foam and block the windows with thick wooden boards so no one can see or hear what is happening inside. They even bolt a bed directly to the floor. To make sure no one can enter, they install 3 heavy locks on the front door. Their hideout is now ready. Next, they prepare their car by lining the interior with soundproof sheets. After finishing the work, the two men dress up in formal suits, looking like they are going to a fancy party. However, this is just a disguise. They put on masks and wait outside a house to kidnap a girl. As she arrives, they grab her, pull her into the car, and drive her back to the apartment. Inside the room, they lift her onto the bed and tie her hands and legs with ropes. They gag her and cover her eyes so she cannot see. Then, they cut off all her clothes, leaving her completely exposed. In this helpless state, they take several photos of her. We learn that the girl's name is Alice, and she comes from a very wealthy family. Vic and Danny don't care about her, they only care about money. Their plan is simple. They will send these photos to her father and demand a massive ransom. Once they get the money, they plan to disappear forever. Vic and Danny are being extremely careful with every step they take. They want to make sure they leave no clues behind so the police can never track them down. To stay hidden, they constantly change their clothes and throw away any items they have already used. They even scrub the inside of the van to remove any fingerprints or evidence. They use several different phones to stay untraceable. After Vic calls and emails Alice's father to demand the money, he immediately gets rid of the phone. Both men have a criminal past, but this is the first time Danny has done something this serious. Vic, on the other hand, is an experienced criminal who has done this many times before. Because he knows exactly what to do, he constantly gives Danny instructions and keeps him focused. Despite the plan going well, Danny is very nervous. His hands and legs are shaking and he is too scared to eat or drink. To calm him down, Vic forces him to eat and keeps him busy with work so he doesn't lose his nerve. Vic is worried that Danny's guilt or his sense of right and wrong might cause him to make a mistake. If Danny messes up, it will lead to a huge problem for both of them. After they finish eating, they give Alice some new clothes to wear and some water to drink. When Alice tries to scream for help, they quickly choke her to stay quiet and give her a stern warning. They tell her that screaming won't help and that if she wants to leave this place alive, she must cooperate with them. They tell her it will only take 2 days before they all go their separate ways, and if she needs to use the bathroom, she must wave her hand as a signal. However, they do not let her go to an actual bathroom. When she signals them, they force her to use a bedpan right there on the bed in front of them. When night falls, Vic leaves the apartment, and Danny is assigned to watch over Alice. We see that Vic handles everything very professionally. He never tries to touch Alice's body or cross any lines. But Danny is different. He feels an attraction toward Alice and keeps looking at her naked photos over and over again. Later that night, after Vic is gone, Danny goes into Alice's room. He wants to touch her, but he has to stop and leave quickly because Vic knocks on the door. Vic returns to tell him that he called Alice's father a second time, and the father has finally agreed to pay the ransom. Vic is suspicious and thinks Alice's father tried to have the police trace the call. To stay safe, Vic disconnects the call and throws the phone away immediately. He wants to make sure the father goes to the bank to get the money tomorrow morning without involving the police. To pressure him, they decide to film a video of Alice. Holding a knife to her, they force her to beg her father to pay the ransom. After they finish recording, they tie her hands and feet again and cover her eyes. Vic saves the video onto a drive and leaves the apartment again. Later that night, when Danny goes to check on Alice, she signals that she needs to use the bathroom. This time, she explains it is an emergency and a bedpan will not work. Danny decides to untie one of her hands and one of her legs. He tells her she must use a bucket in the room. Alice asks him for some privacy, but Danny refuses. He stays right there, watching her with his gun ready. While they are talking, Alice waits for the perfect moment. When Danny turns his back to her, she reveals that the emergency was just a trick. She attacks Danny with the bucket, causing him to lose his balance and fall. Alice quickly grabs his gun and points it at him. She even fires 2 shots to show she is serious and demands the keys to her restraints. To her surprise, Danny takes off his mask and shows his face. Alice is shocked to see that the kidnapper is actually her ex-boyfriend, Danny. She is furious, but Danny tries to explain himself. He tells her he is doing all of this for their future. His plan is to take the $2 million from her father, trick Vic, and run away with Alice to start a new life. Danny explains that they both love each other, but they have no money. He also knows her father would never let her be with a criminal like him, so he felt this plan was the only way. Even though Alice hates her father, she is still angry. She asks him why he had to humiliate and hurt her like this instead of telling her the plan beforehand. Danny tells her that everything had to look real so they could fool Vic. He says Vic is a professional who needed to believe the kidnapping was genuine. As they talk, Danny continues to try and convince Alice to trust him and follow the plan. Suddenly, Vic knocks on the door again, which terrifies Danny. Danny knows that if he doesn't open the door quickly, Vic will break it down and come inside. If Vic sees that Alice is untied and has the gun, he will kill both of them. Faced with no other choice, Alice finally agrees to go along with Danny's plan. Danny quickly hides the evidence of their struggle and manages to act naturally before Vic enters. He is desperate to keep his past a secret. He doesn't want Vic to find out that he and Alice were lovers before he went to jail. If Vic knew that Danny had a personal reason for choosing Alice, the whole partnership would fall apart. Luckily, Vic does not suspect anything. However, Vic decides he will be the one to watch Alice for a while. He tells Danny that sending the video to her father was a smart move. The father has officially agreed to pay the $2 million in cash tomorrow morning. Vic has already chosen the exact spot where the money will be dropped off. Now, only the final exchange remains. Vic tells Danny to get some sleep because tomorrow will be a very busy day. In the morning, they go to the room to get Alice ready. When they enter, Alice looks exhausted, as if she has no energy left in her body. Vic worries for a moment that they might have suffocated her too much, but luckily, she is fine. Vic begins to feed her to make sure she stays strong. Suddenly, both Danny and Alice notice a spent bullet casing lying on the floor from their struggle the night before. They both freeze in fear. While Vic isn't looking, Danny quickly grabs the bullet. He tries to flush it down the toilet in the bathroom, but it won't go down. In a desperate move to hide the evidence, he actually swallows the bullet. Danny is clearly terrified, and the stress is showing on his face. Vic notices his tension and tries to calm him down. He tells Danny that in just a few more hours, they will be far away from all of this. He promises they will be rich, happy, and able to start a new life together. Vic tells Danny that he is doing all of this because he loves him. At this point, we realize the truth. Danny is also Vic's boyfriend. They have been in a relationship since they were in prison together. To show his affection, Vic gives Danny a passionate kiss. Vic leaves the room, and as soon as he is gone, Danny goes to Alice and acts very loving toward her. It is hard to tell who Danny is really lying to or who he truly loves. He stays close to Alice and makes her believe that he will get her out of there as soon as they have the money. At Alice's request, he unties her, and she seems to happily accept his help. However, we soon find out that Alice is only pretending to be happy. She tricks Danny, manages to snap handcuffs onto his wrist, and tries to run away. She finds that the door is locked, but she sees a phone sitting on the table. Alice manages to call the police, but she is unable to explain her location before she has to hang up. Alice spots a gun lying nearby and quickly hides the phone in her pocket. She points the weapon at Danny and demands the keys. But Danny is ready. When she gets close, he uses his legs to choke her until she passes out. He quickly frees himself from the handcuffs and ties Alice back to the bed just like before. He has no idea the phone is still hidden in her pocket. A short while later, Vic returns. He tells Danny it is time to move Alice to a warehouse because her father is ready with the money. Vic sends Danny to park the van while he goes into the room to get Alice ready and pack their things. When they check on Alice, they both get scared because she isn't moving. For the second time, she looks lifeless. Her body feels cold and she is unconscious. Danny is terrified, wondering if she is actually dead this time. However, Vic uses a strong smelling salt to wake her up, and she slowly comes back to her senses. Vic sends Danny out of the room so he can watch Alice by himself. While he is moving her, the hidden phone falls out of her pocket. Vic becomes furious and beats her, demanding to know where she got it. In her terror, Alice accidentally calls out for Danny. This makes Vic even more suspicious. He wonders how she even knows Danny's name. To make matters worse, Vic finds a bullet casing on the floor. He threatens Alice with a knife, and she finally tells him a story, but she only tells him half the truth. She claims that Danny made a secret deal with her. She tells Vic that if she cooperated with the kidnapping, Danny promised to trick Vic, take all the money for himself, and give her a share. However, she does not mention that Danny is actually her ex-boyfriend. Vic feels deeply betrayed. He is hurt because he truly loved Danny and can't believe Danny would treat him this way. When Danny returns, Vic asks him many questions to see if he will be honest, but Danny stays quiet and says nothing. This makes Vic even more certain that Danny is planning to cheat him. However, Vic hasn't changed the main plan yet. As they originally arranged, they give Alice a drug to make her sleep and wrap her in a sheet. They carry her down the stairs, put her in the van, and drive to an abandoned warehouse. Once there, they tie her hands and feet again and lock her in a room. Next, they prepare to collect the money in the forest. At first, the plan was for Danny to stay at the warehouse with Alice while Vic went alone. But this time, Vic is suspicious, so he insists that Danny comes with him. He even steals Danny's keys so he cannot escape. Finally, they reach the specific spot in the forest. Danny goes into the forest to find the money, but he sees that the pit is completely empty. Vic is not surprised at all because he already knew the money wouldn't be there. Vic had changed the location and called Alice's father to meet at a different spot. This pit was never meant for the money, it was meant to be Danny's grave. Vic tells Danny that he needs to teach him a lesson for cheating him. He points his gun at Danny and orders him to close his eyes. Danny is terrified and starts crying. He falls to the ground and tries to trick Vic so he can escape. Vic is unable to catch him, but he fires his gun and hits Danny. Danny is badly wounded and will not survive for long. Without worrying about Danny, Vic focuses on the final steps of his plan. He changes his clothes and meets Alice's father to collect all the money. After putting the cash in his bag, he changes his outfit again and sets the van on fire so that no evidence or clues are left behind. After destroying the evidence, Vic heads back to the warehouse. He isn't going there to set Alice free, he is going there to kill her. Vic feels he can't take any risks now because Danny has already told Alice too much about him, where they met and how they operated. Vic prepares a needle filled with poison to end her life quietly. But just as he is about to inject her, an injured and bleeding Danny staggers into the room. In a final burst of energy, Danny attacks Vic and manages to snatch the gun away. The tables have turned completely. Vic, once the leader, is now the victim. He falls to the floor, begging for his life just as Danny had done in the forest. Danny, hardened by the betrayal and his own near-death experience, shows no mercy. He points the gun at Vic and shoots him at point-blank range. Seeing this, Alice is overcome with joy and relief. She truly believes that Danny has saved her and that they will finally take the money and run away together to start their new life. Alice thinks they are finally going to be together, but Danny has changed. He is angry and bitter. He tells her that if she had just listened to him from the start, none of this would have happened. He blames her for the fact that he had to kill Vic, his own partner. Now, instead of saving her, he wants to take revenge on her for trying to cheat him. Danny removes the gag from Alice's mouth so she can breathe, but he refuses to untie her hands. He leaves her exactly as she was, tied up and helpless. He takes his keys and walks out of the warehouse. Outside, he finds Vic's car filled with the bags of money. Danny is bleeding heavily, so his first priority is to drive to a hospital and save himself. As Danny drives away with the millions, Alice is left alone in the dark room. She begins to scream at the top of her lungs, terrified of being left to die. But in a final, surprising moment, Vic, who is barely alive, manages to reach into his pocket. He pulls out his own set of keys, which Danny had forgotten to take. With his last bit of strength, he hands the keys to Alice and then passes away. Using her feet, Alice manages to hook the keys and pull them toward her. She finally unlocks the handcuffs and frees her hands. Exhausted and shaken, she slowly walks out of the warehouse into the open air. Alice has no idea where she is, so she simply starts walking straight down the lonely road. After walking for a while, she sees a car in the distance that has crashed into a dish. As she gets closer, she sees dollar bills scattered all over the road, fluttering in the wind. This was Danny's getaway car. Because he was bleeding so heavily, he lost consciousness while driving and crashed. Danny is dead. Alice doesn't hesitate. She quickly pulls his body out of the driver's seat and leaves it on the road. She is now the one in control, and she has the full $2 million in cash with her. The news of her kidnapping has already spread across the entire city. She realizes that everyone thinks she is a victim, and she can use this to her advantage. This is her chance to start a new life on her own terms, away from her father and away from the criminals who took her. She starts the engine, drives into the distance, and our story ends here.